All right, so Christian McCaffrey traded the San Francisco 49ers. Kind of a league-breaking move. A lot of people expected him to get moved. I know that we had previously talked about it, and we thought maybe the Bills, the Chiefs. We had mentioned San Francisco, but it didn't feel as realistic as some of those other teams, but the deal got done, and I think it's in large part because of this trade package that the Niners offered. So they gave the Panthers a 2023 second, third, and fourth round draft picks, as well as a 2024 fifth round draft pick, and they got McCaffrey. So, Aaron, what do you think about this deal? How does it affect the 49ers, and how do you feel about the Panthers and the haul that they got?
So I'll start with the Panthers because I think it was a solid haul. I would say a good haul. They didn't get the first rounders, but I think reviewing history with the Trent Richardson trade, that didn't really work out for either side. And we've mentioned, especially you, a bunch of times on this podcast, where running backs kind of becoming a less valued, I won't say less valued, but a more dispensable position. The shelf life for that position is very much so shorter than wide receiver and definitely quarterback. And I think we mentioned in our video that, McCaffrey, it looks like the tread's already starting to come off the tires, had some injuries. So solid deal for the Panthers, especially if that report, which, like I said, they obviously accepted this deal. There's a report I think I saw on Bleacher Report, like, they were trying to get they wanted multiple first round picks. No team was going to do that, but understandably, hey, you set the price higher than you wanted in case someone bites. For San Francisco, I understand it. I like it. I know because they're dealing with some injuries, and we've always kind of said, okay, well, Kyle Shanahan, he can make any running back work, and heck, he got a really talented one here in CMC. I think this will offset some of the workload for Deebo Samuel. Like I still expect him to maybe get a jet sweep, but I don't expect him to be in the backfield as much, doing the in between the tackles stuff. And then obviously we know McCaffrey can do stuff in the passing game. I'm real excited to see what Shanahan can cook up with McCaffrey and Deebo. And we mentioned this team was hit by injuries a lot recently, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And so, yeah, I mean, I really like it. And, I think John Lynch mentioned this is obviously a pushing your chips in the table. We're going for the Super Bowl type move. So all in all, I like it for both sides. And I probably should have looked up the contract details, but he's got another year or two left, McCaffrey, I think.
I believe he actually has 3 years left.
3. Okay. So, I mean, potentially, could be maybe a bad contract down the road, but at least for this year, maybe next year, I think.
So
it's not that bad.
He has this year and then the next 3 years, all at about $12 million that the Niners will have to pay.
Okay, so that's not too bad, especially if he stays healthy. So, yeah, I like the trade. Gives them another weapon for their offense, another toy for Kyle Shanahan to utilize. So, yeah, I'm in love with it. But what about you, John?
I'll start with the Panthers. I mean, it's a great trade for them. Like, I didn't even think they were actually going to get this much. I know the rumors, like you said, were they were looking for first-round picks. With his injury history, the contract, all those kind of factors, I know that people don't want to say that it lowers the value, but it does. Like, that's a realistic thing that teams have to take into account. Is like, this guy's had a lot of injuries and he's getting paid a lot of money. And so that limits how much he was going to get. And I even tweeted at some point that I was like, there's no shot that a team's going to trade a first round pick for him because it's too risky, right? What if you trade for him and he gets hurt? And I hate to think like that, but that with his injury history, you just have to. So I love the fact that they got this many picks, and we talked about it. There was very limited market for him because really the only teams that are going to trade for him are like true contenders, teams that believe they can win the Super Bowl. Because otherwise, why would you trade a certain amount of draft picks for a running back? Like, this, it just doesn't make sense. So considering the probably 5 or so teams that were maybe realistically possible, I'm happy they were able to get this amount of picks, because I did potentially worry they weren't going to get the greatest of offers for him and they'd have to settle. So I love what they got, especially since, now you can like truly go for the number 1 pick without looking like obviously you're tanking. So yeah, good deal for the Panthers. For the Niners, in principle, I agree with going for it, right? Because I think that they believe after they paid Deebo Samuel, now's the time. We're going to go all in. You still have Jimmy G this year. I do think it's kind of interesting. Like, I want to get your thought real quick. Do you think they would have made this move if they had Trey Lance at this point?
I don't think so, because he just provides the running ability himself. So it's like, okay, we don't need to invest also in a stud running back. But yeah, because Jimmy G is purely a pocket passer, I think, Kyle Shanahan's probably like, man, if we really want to win and beat all these, beat the elite teams, we're going to need another difference maker, because Jimmy G's just going to do what's given to him. He's not going to make plays on his own like a Josh Allen or any of the other stud quarterbacks.
Right. And McCaffrey, I think that like he's just such a he's like the ultimate, okay, we're going to win now kind of player. He's a running back. He's 26 years old. I know that other people also don't want to hear this too, but like realistically within the next 3 years, like during that contract, I expect there to be a decline and we start to see him come towards the end of his, prime, because running backs, when they hit around the age of 28, that's usually when their prime is up. He's only 26, so he still has a couple of years left, hoping that he's still healthy during that time. Anyway, so I agree with it in principle. That being said, you know how I feel about running backs. I think they're incredibly replaceable. And I think that Kyle Shanahan and his genius in the run game allows for you to use almost any running back and you get production. And I know that McCaffrey is so much better than Jeff Wilson or Elijah Mitchell. And I'm interested to see how much more productive he is than those guys. But honestly, I don't think that this fixed their issues. I still think that there's a quarterback deficit between them and some of the other teams in the NFC. I still think they have some issues in terms of health along the defense. And so maybe that goes to, you want to try and trade for depth. So yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I like the move in principle because I think it signals that they're trying to win now, and you get another playmaker in an offense that doesn't have, like you said, a Josh Allen. So having more playmakers only, increases your likelihood of potentially going and competing for a Super Bowl. But I don't know. I still think that the difference maker between them and a lot of these teams has been the QB position. And so we'll see. Maybe McCaffrey is just so talented that he can kind of help overcome some of that stuff.
Just last question to us, I think it's probably helped sum up both of our points. If you had to give a letter grade, specifically probably to San Francisco, in regards to this deal, what would you give the letter grade for them?
This might sound harsh, but I give him like a C+.
I give him a B+. I know I said I love, but that's one reason I wanted to make sure we give grades, because like I do like it, but yes, I am with you. There's a little bit of concern in regards to what this move will look like 2-3 years from now if McCaffrey, because just for a quick example, we just saw Todd Gurley finally announce he retired from the NFL, and his career was 6 years, and we saw how long and short that prime was. So granted, he had previous knee stuff, but it's a very physical and damaging position, as we've seen. So
yeah, and I also wanted to point out too, like this isn't as comparable because McCaffrey has had a very limited snap count over the last couple of years due to the injury, which crazily enough might be kind of a good thing. But like, look at Zeke for the Cowboys. Everybody's talking about how he's washed. 2 years ago, nobody would have said that. 2 years ago, he got that big contract and everybody was like hyped about it. And it just shows like the running back position. It's once they decline, it's not a slow one. Like with quarterbacks, there's a slow decline with QBs. With running backs, it's really fast. And I'm not saying that McCaffrey is going to do that because I think this year he's going to be great. But I also do worry about like the re-injury possibility because if you trade all these picks and then say this year he misses time, well, now all of a sudden, like, was it super worth it? Because this is a win now move. Like when Trey Lance comes in next year, I don't know how much better they'll be. We still have to see if he's a better option than Jimmy Garoppolo. So anyway, like I said, in principle, I agree with the trade, but in the long term, like if they don't win a Super Bowl, I think we look back on this trade as probably a failure.
Yeah, I would agree because that's what this is. And I forget. I think they have the first round pick this year, so
I don't think that maybe I thought it was. I
forget because I know,
pretty sure it was in the Trey Lance deal, right?
Trey Lance. I forget if they included 3 or just like the last 2 years. I knew last year obviously they gave their pick to the Dolphins. Confirmation. Sorry,
trying to find it.
It's always tough looking for this stuff. It's annoying. 1 second. See, according to Niners Wire. Oh yeah, they don't have the first round.
Yep, don't have
pick.
it.
So they have 2/3.
The Dolphins have it.
Okay, so the Dolphins do. Okay, so they also, you're right. So they did include that in the Dolphins deal. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, this definitely is. There's no like they will that war room will be empty for at least that first day, that first round. So yeah.
I've heard that they don't actually now have a pick through the first 150 picks. So I don't know the math on when the like compensatory picks end in the third round, but they might not even have a pick in the first 2 days. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Luckily, they are a very talented team, though. So.
And I will say too, maybe they do seem to find solid guys, and later in the draft they've been able to find good depth there at times. So maybe they should have more confidence in that.
And I do want to add, actually, I think maybe a motivating factor for why they did this trade, and I feel bad because this is actually maybe kind of throws my own team as like not as serious as some people think they are. I have to imagine that they're looking at the rest of the NFC and they're thinking, okay, NFC South, who do we worry about? Probably nobody. Like the Bucks, maybe if they can get it together, but not worried about the Falcons or the Saints or the Panthers. So like, and even then, like the Bucks, they seem very beatable right now.
The Bucks aren't as scary as they've been in previous years. They're not looking as
So then you go, okay, the rest of the NFC West. Well, the Rams are struggling. They don't have an offensive line, so as long as they don't fix that, like we can beat them. Not worried about Seattle. Not worried about Arizona. Okay, so now we move to the NFC East. Well, we just saw Philly and Dallas play, and they look like, as of right now, probably the two best teams in the NFC, but they haven't played the Niners yet. And that, I think the Niners probably watched that game and felt confident that come playoff time, they could beat both those teams if they were to make this kind of a move. And then the NFC North, the Vikings.
Yeah.
I mean, like the Vikings are 5-1. They're a good team, but I would probably take the Niners in that game. So, and the Packers are having their issues. Like basically they looked at the rest of the NFC, and I think in their minds, if the only true competition as of today, this could very well change in a month, is Philly and Dallas and like the Giants, I think they probably feel pretty confident taking that on. Yeah. So, yeah.
And then you make the Super Bowl. You just gotta win one game from there. You gotta win one game, and we'll see how they fare against the Chiefs this weekend. But even then, they aren't even fully healthy, so I don't think it's going to be a fair barometer, anyways. But yeah, I feel like I'm going to see. I'd say Raheem Mostert's still running. I feel like if that happens again in the playoffs, Christian McCaffrey's just going to not stop running, and then just be that same nightmare over again. But yeah, well, Niners going all in. So there you go.